When the weight of this world crashes down on you, God will listen to you. When the sky turns black and your thoughts turn blue, God will listen to you. God will listen to you. Always listen to you. He understands how his children feel. God will listen to you. When your river of tears cannot be contained, God will listen to you. Like the drowning man in the pouring rain, God will listen to you. God will listen to you. Always listen to you. He understands how his children feel. God will listen to you. When the light explodes in a world gone wrong, God will listen to you. When your heart beats strong with a grateful song, God will listen to you. God will listen to you. Always listen to you. He understands how his children feel. God will listen to you. God will listen to you. Always listen to you. He understands how his children feel. God will listen to you. He understands how his children feel. God will listen to you. I am a poor pilgrim of sorrow. I'm tossed in this wide world alone. No hope have I for tomorrow. I've started to make heaven my home. Sometimes I'm tossed and driven, Lord. Sometimes I don't know where to roam. I've heard of a city called heaven. I've started to make heaven my home. Some loved ones have reached that pure glory. Some loved ones still walking in sin. Some loved ones who no longer know me because I'm trying to get in. Sometimes I'm tossed and driven, Lord. Sometimes I don't know where to roam. I've heard of a city called heaven. I've started to make heaven my home. I live in a city that's fading. I long for the city to come. I'm doing my best in the meantime. I started to make heaven my home. Sometimes I'm tossed and driven, Lord. Sometimes I don't know where to roam. I've heard of a city called heaven. I've started to make heaven my home. Sometimes I'm tossed and driven, Lord. Sometimes I don't know where to roam. I've heard of a city called heaven. I've started to make heaven my home. I've started to make heaven my home. I've started to make
This is from what's called the Sermon on the Mount. Matthew chapter 5, beginning in verse 33. Jesus is saying, "You have heard that the ancients were told, 'You shall not make false vows, but you shall fulfill your vows to the Lord.' But I tell you, make no oath at all, either by heaven, for it is the throne of God, or by earth, for it is the footstool of God's feet, or by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great King. You shall not make an oath by your head, for you cannot make one hair white and another one black. Rather, let your statement be yes or no. Anything beyond this is evil."
Oh, I've heard 1,000 stories of what they think you're like, but I've heard the tender whisper of love in the dead of night, and you tell me that you're pleased and that I'm never alone. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are, and I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. Oh, I've seen many searching for answers far and wide, but I know we're all searching for answers only you provide, 'cause you know just what we need before we say a word. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are, and I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways to us. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways to us.
Okay, so I got to give you backstory here. God has a name. In the Bible, God's name is, it shows up, it's 4 letters in Hebrew, which just because of how Hebrew is constructed, would normally be read as, in English, 6 letters, because what's missing are a couple of vowels, but they're not really missing, they're actually there. There are only 3 vowels in Hebrew. And so it's Hebrew, so I won't even go into the details. We mispronounce the name of God. We mispronounce it Jehovah. That's because there's this commandment that says, "Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord your God in vain." It's not actually what it says. It says, "Thou shalt not take the name Jehovah in vain." Only it doesn't say Jehovah. It actually has these 4 letters. But what happened was that, at first, this shows up like 4,000 times in the Hebrew Scriptures in what we call Old Testament. And it mostly gets translated into English as Lord. But that's not what it says. It's the name. The actual name is there. God has a name. Moses, he didn't want the job when God said, "Hey, I'd like you to go to Pharaoh and tell him time to let my people go." And Moses didn't want the job. And so Moses knew that no self-respecting deity would ever reveal their name, because if you know the name of God, you have access and authority. And no deity gives up that secret. And so Moses is like, "Well, they're going to ask me who sent me, and I won't know what to tell them. So I'm going to have your name," thinking, no way I'm going to get that, and I'm out of this. And God goes, "Oh, sure, let me tell you my name." And what God says, at first what God says is Hayah, which is Hebrew for I am. I am that I am. In the Greek translation, it comes out something like, "I am being itself." And then God says, So you will go and you will tell them that, and then we get the name of God, which contains the root for to be in it. The name contains the root for to be. You will tell them that Jehovah sent you. Only Jehovah is not how it's pronounced. So. But the reason I keep saying Jehovah, even though I'm insisting it's not how it's pronounced, is because at some point the rabbis said, you know, they were struggling with the how do we keep the commandments thing, and they came up with this idea, like they call it building a fence around the law, which basically says if I don't even get close to the commandment, I can't break the commandment. So the way they handled this commandment, thou shalt not take the name Jehovah in vain, was they just decided never to say the name, ever. Just never say the name. And of course what that means is that we've lost to a certain extent the perfectly accurate pronunciation, so we're not exactly sure how it should be pronounced. We can only get close to the original pronunciation, but we can't get it exact. But it's now considered highly rude, if nothing else, to just say the name of God, except in prayer. So I'm going to use Jehovah just as a matter of cultural politeness. Now, the commandment itself is not about swearing, like you drop something on your foot and you go, right? That's not about that. It's about swearing, as in, I do solemnly swear to tell the truth and the whole truth, nothing but truth. Or you make a promise or a covenant or a vow, and you swear that you will do what you have promised, and you swear using the actual name of God. And so if you violate that rule, you are taking that name in vain, and this is one of the big 10, the 10 commandments. So, like, if you're going to break a commandment, best to avoid breaking one of the big 10. Break one of the little ones, you know, like eating pork or something like that, you know, but don't break the big ones. So the rabbis said, okay, what we're going to do is, if we never say the name, we won't have this problem. But now the question is, okay, but now I got to swear an oath in a court of law, or if I'm doing a contract with somebody. So now what do I swear in? Because I'm not going to use the name of God anymore. So they started coming up with all of these different things, like by heaven, or by, you know, by the angels, by the hairs of my head, by the whatever. That's what Jesus is talking about. He quotes this verse, and it boils down to, if you make a promise to God, so this is what happens. Do you know what lawyers' jobs are? Lawyers have two jobs. Job number one is to, you know, if you need some paperwork done, they want to make sure that it's done correctly. And job number two, help get you out of a contract. That's their two fundamental jobs. I'm not talking about defense attorneys, but I'm talking about just general lawyers. That's what they do. So, hey, I want to get out of this contract. Well, you made a promise, you signed your name, right, sealed it, the notary saw it, and now you want to get out of it, so the lawyer's job is to figure a way out. Well, there were lawyers back then, too. And what they did was they said, oh, the commandment says, you know, keep your vow, make sure that you pay your vows that you've made to God. But you know, all those other vows, they're not made in God's name, because we don't say God's name, so you can break those. They were trying to get out of contract. So Jesus comes along and says, don't do that. If you say yes, let it be yes. If you say no, let it be no. It has nothing to do with whether or not you intoned the name of God when you were making that promise. If you make a promise, that's it. That's it. Make a promise, you keep it. And actually, all the way through the Bible, we see repeatedly the idea that anytime you make a promise, a covenant, or a vow, which are more or less variations on the same thing, you keep it. So the Bible always cautions, don't hastily make a promise. And the Bible always insists that if you make it, you better keep it, because if you don't, it will go badly for you. So there's always a benefit and a blessing to keeping a promise, and there's always a danger inherent in breaking a promise. This is a theme throughout the Bible. So I just want you to think about the fact that if you live in this world, you've made promises. I have promises here. Let's see. For example, if you were a scout, then you made a promise. On my honor, I will do my best to do my duty to God and my country, to obey the scout law, to help other people at all times, to keep myself physically strong, mentally awake, and morally straight. So if you were a scout, you made that promise, or something like that. If you've been baptized, there's a promise there too. That would go something like, I confess Jesus as my Lord and promise to serve him in union with the church. Something like that. The language can vary from church to church, but that's more or less it. If you're married, you made a promise that goes something like this: I take you to be my wedded spouse, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish, till death do us part, according to God's holy commandments. To this I pledge my faith. One of the things I really like about doing like 25, 30, and 50-year renewals of vows for married people is that I happen to know, as a person who's been married for over 40 years, this deep and profound truth. When you make that promise when you're getting married, you absolutely mean it, but you have no idea what you're getting yourself into. I was listening to a lecture, in the middle of listening to some lectures, and the lecturer is he's a theologian and a professor at some, theological university or something, but he was for 10 years a Benedictine monk. And then after that, after he left the monastic order, and he actually got married. And so he said, he was kind of making a joke because he was talking about mystic visions. And he said, I'm married, so I have seen visions of heaven and hell, but I'm not a mystic, right? But that's it. When you're married, you experience all this stuff. And it's way easy in the beginning, when you're walking down that aisle, you're like, these vows are simple, and then life. Then life. And it turns out really tough. And the thing about that, there's no such thing as an easy divorce. Every divorce is painful. I mean, I think that's one of the great examples of this thing about the risk of breaking covenant, because every divorce, yes, there are some situations where the divorce is the better of the two evils, because and believe me, I've witnessed some of those things firsthand, but there's no one gets out of divorce injury-free. There are always scars, there's always damage, there's always hurt. That's just how it is. Every time a vow or covenant is broken, there's damage that occurs. We're imperiled by that. Now, the part of the reason I was thinking about this is because Ken, who's a member of our church, yesterday left for the Mideast. Right? Now, I want you to think about this. So here's a guy, he swore not only that marriage oath to his wife, but he also swore this one: I do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, and that I will obey the orders of the President of the United States and the orders of the officers appointed over me according to regulations and the Uniform Code of Military Justice, so help me God. And this is where things get really tough, because they called him and they said, we're deploying you to the Mideast for a year. Now, this is his second deployment. It was just, 4 or 5 years ago, he'd been deployed to Afghanistan for a year, and now he's going back to the Middle East. And here's the thing. He's not the only one. He's keeping his oath, but he's not the only one paying the price, because he leaves. And there's his wife and his kids left here without him. And there's another oath that they are all bound under, which somehow has to endure this experience. I mean, this stuff is not small, the idea of keeping the promises we make. It is not small. But we're just like, we whip promises out like there's nothing to it. Oh, I promise I'll do that. But of course we mean it when we say it. There's just a thing I kind of want to leave you with to kind of think about. I want to read to you a quote from C.S. Lewis from the Chronicles of Narnia. And the person speaking here is Aslan, who is Christ. If you swear an oath and keep it for the oath's sake, it is by me that you have truly sworn, even if you do not know it. And it is I who reward you. Can you find the prayer of response? It's just printed there in the bulletin. Let's pray that together. To make an oath and keep it is an honored thing. To make an oath and break it is a thing of peril. How imperiled I am, O Lord, have mercy. So often I have made my vows, sworn my oaths, and in the moment I have meant every word Then, so often, under the wear and tear of life, the pressures of expediency, the temptations of this world, I have broken those very promises. I have shown myself faithless and untrustworthy, and I stand condemned by my own words. So now, O Lord, I look to you. Grant me forgiveness and restore me again to the true keeping of my word before you. I ask this in your holy name. Amen.
There's plenty good room, plenty good room, plenty good room at the master's table. Plenty good room, just choose your seat and sit down. I would not be a sinner, I'll tell you the reason why. I'm afraid my Lord might call on me, and I wouldn't be ready to die. There's a plenty good room, plenty good room, plenty good room at the master's table. Plenty good room, just choose your seat and sit down. I would not be a liar, I'll tell you the reason why. I'm afraid my Lord might call on me. And I would be ready to die. There's a plenty good room, plenty good room, plenty good room at the master's table. Plenty good room, just choose your seat and sit down. I would not be unfaithful, I would not be unfaithful, I would not be unfaithful. I'll tell you the reason why. I'm afraid my Lord might call on me. And I wouldn't be ready to die. There's a plenty good room, plenty good room, plenty good room at the master's table. Plenty good room, just choose your seat and sit down. Just choose your seat and sit down. Eternal Father, strong to save, whose arm hath bound the restless wave, who bids the mighty ocean deep its own appointed limits keep. Oh, hear us when we cry to thee, for those in peril on the sea. Christ the Lord of plain and hill, for which our traffic running still, by mountain pass or valley low, wherever, Lord, thy children go, protect them by thy guarding hand, from every peril on the land. Spirit whom thy love hath sent, to spread abroad the firmament, O wind of heaven, by thy might, save all who dare the eagle's flight, and keep them by thy watchful care, from every peril in the air. Trinity of love and power, a loved one shield in danger's hour, from rock and tempest, fire and foe, protect them wheresoever they go. Thus evermore shall rise to thee, by praise from air and land and sea. Thus ever